Princess Peach. She's good. She's good. This is a good one. I'm happy with this. I got the crown back and everything. Mine had a broken crown, so I found one that has the crown, and she's looking absolutely great, and she's wonderful, and I love her, and it's perfect, and she'll go back on the shelf. Great. I play a lot of games as Princess Peach. I play most of my Mario parties as Princess Peach, and I play a lot of Mario Kart and things like that as Princess Peach. And strangely enough, this is partially because of my friends, and because years ago I used to play fighting games, and we had some particular rules that forced me into playing certain characters that now I like a lot, but they were not the character I chose to play. Let's talk about something interesting. Okay, so what am I talking about? Is it bad to play as Princess Peach? No, we've talked about this before a while back when I talked about liking Wonder Woman, and that is that's my favorite superhero, and has been for a while now. And then the idea comes up, well, why? And then I remember I talked in that video, I said, oh, well, I've had many times where I've come in and had people be like, yeah, but you're like a guy. Shouldn't you like Batman? Shouldn't you like Superman? Shouldn't you like Spider-Man? And sure, maybe. Maybe by some diluted old-time scale, I'm supposed to be a guy, so I'm supposed to like the male characters. And maybe a lot of guys that end up liking female characters like them because of a very specific reason. We know what that reason is. We know what that reason is. Let's not kid ourselves. But me, why did I start using a lot of female characters like Peach? Years ago, I used to play a lot of fighting games. And during this time, we had a group, a very specific group of friends that used to hang out, and we were also part of a big club that was called Gamers United. Now, when we used to play games, you wanted to get good with somebody and kind of experience the game and kind of build off the game. So when we very first started playing games like this and really wanting to get good at them, we started calling mains. Who you gonna main? And if I remember the argument came up in a couple of games, well, I main this character and I main that character. Okay. And then two people would be like, well, I main the same character. And it got a little tiresome to watch mirror matches. And then if one person ended up particularly way better with that one character than the other, then the other guy kind of always was pushed off into the background. It is the way it is. You'd rather see the person that's really good play with it than play with said character than the person that's not as good. It's just the way that it happens. So sometimes we'd be going through the storylines or whatever to unlock the game because, especially in something like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, you got to beat the game over and over and over again and get the money, and then you spend the money and you unlock the characters and the costumes, the colors, and the yada yada. Well, this led to people picking mains. And time again, I found myself in this interesting debacle of sorts, where we'd go on to play like Mario Party, just to name a game that we'd play, and everybody would start picking characters. A buddy of mine picked Luigi every time. And Luigi, when I was growing up, when I very first saw the two choices of the Mario characters, we're talking the original Mario here, there was a guy that was dressed in white, and it was kind of striking, and I liked that a lot. That's the one I wanted. The white and green. I liked Luigi. Then, all of a sudden, somebody else comes up, and they're like, Luigi's my main. And I'm like, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. And there was this weird stigma that had been built around these fighting games where we were picking mains that like two people did not main the same guy because that was boring. We wanted to see the game in its larger context. So you would like move on if you found that somebody was maining a character that you wanted to main. Before I knew it, this was happening to me a lot, where I would go into a game and I would think, okay, I'm going to play this game. And I remember the first time this really hit was in Mario Kart. I was playing Super Mario Kart, and all of a sudden, we were picking like who would, basically, we were just playing Mario Kart, and we were passing the controller, and there was like 6 people in the room. And before I knew it, like, people were like, oh, well, I use Mario. And then and I was like, that's fine, I don't care for Mario. And then I use Yoshi. Well, I used Yoshi. And then all of a sudden, it felt wrong to use Yoshi if that was like somebody else's main. Because if I came up to play against them, I didn't like want to pick their character. I didn't want to pick their character. So instead, I talked myself into picking the character they weren't using. So I was like, okay, so I'll use the Koopa. So I go over and I pick him. And before I knew it, then I got another buddy who's there, and he's like, well, that's the guy I use. And I'm like, crap. All right, well, I'll use Bowser. And then I started using Bowser, and I didn't like Bowser. I just didn't like that. I didn't like the way that he reacted compared to the other racers. And so I started swapping around the field till finally I realized there was one character nobody was picking. See, shockingly, when I was growing up and I was quite young, my friends were basically all guys. And they didn't pick the girl characters. So I stumbled upon this thing where I was like, I'll play Peach. I like the way she races. Everything seems right. I'm very used to her handling and everything. She's fast enough. I'm fine with this. There. I'm playing as Peach. Then before I knew it, we were in Mario Party, and everybody's got the 4 controllers, and they're picking characters, and it's like doop, 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 doop. There's the 3 of the characters right off the bat are like characters that I would have picked. And so I started using Wario, only to come across another person who came over that was their character that they used. They used Wario, and then it felt wrong to pick Wario because if that person was playing the game, and I've always been the kind of person that like invited people to my house, okay? So that's another thing to keep in mind here. And part of that is even after they become a regular guest, you still kind of have a bit of a guest mentality. They ask you, can I have a drink? Of course you can. You're my guest, that kind of thing. And at the same time, I want you to be able to come over and hang out and play games. So when you come over and you're like, hey, I'd like to play some games. Let's play Mario Party. Oh, by the way, I use Wario. Well, that's done to me now too, so I'm not using Wario. There's one character, however, that's in every Mario game that none of the guys are picking. So, once again, Peach. Then, before I knew it, this had started bleeding into other games. Soul Calibur. At first, I was using Maxi. He was like the Bruce Lee guy, right? That made a lot of sense for me. I was into that. And then before I knew it, we had a couple people coming over, and they used Maxi, which no longer felt right. So, when I moved over to the Xbox version, I started playing as Spawn, because that's awesome. And I got really, really good with Spawn. I really did. But we didn't always play on the Xbox. Sometimes we were playing on the GameCube. And of course, Link was picked like that. So I wasn't playing with Link. And then when I moved on to PlayStation, I didn't want Heihachi. And there were other characters there that were cool, but I'd lost my main. But, for whatever reason, nobody was picking Taki. It's this weird mentality that a lot of guys get where they play the male character for no other reason than they are male. And sometimes this is an avatar thing of kind of linking up with the game in a way. You feel more inclined or you feel more at home with the game playing as a male character. You are a male. And in association, to kind of put yourself in that world, you're picking an avatar that kind of represents you. This is also true in a lot of fighting games where guys will pick certain guy fighters. And sometimes they'll pick the guy fighters that they want that kind of signify a bit of a fantasy aspect for themselves. Case in point, we would play a lot of side-scrolling beat-em-ups back then. And side-scrolling beat-em-ups quite often came across this little thing where there'd be 3 or 4 characters to pick from. And guess what? In a game, there's, say, Streets of Rage, right? In Streets of Rage, you have white shirt guy. I'm not remembering the names right now. You get the idea. You got a white shirt guy. You got like a big, strong, wrestly man. And then you got a girl. I think in the original Streets of Rage, though, it was the white shirt guy, then the black guy, and then a girl. And then later on, the one that I played the most, the one that I played the absolute most was I think it was part 3, because it had that robot dude with the like the old man looking robot dude, and it had the skate kid, and then it had Cody. I think that was his name, but they changed him to a yellow shirt, and then they had, of course, I think her name was Blaze. And guess what? Nobody was picking Blaze. So that's who I played as. Same thing happened to me when I would play Golden Axe. Every time I turned on Golden Axe to play the game, guess what? Somebody's like, I'm the dwarf guy. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm Blue Conan. Okay. All right. And you know what? This was one point in time where it absolutely did not bother me. I was like, that's fine. I'm basically Red Sonja. Cool. Okay. This happened over and over and over and over and over till after a while, I just started automatically picking the female characters. Yeah. I just did. And then before I knew it, my entire friend group changed. Like almost every friend that I used to have has kind of moved on and they do their own thing. Some of them I parted with on bad terms. Some of them I parted just because it happens. Either I moved or we just kind of stopped hanging out or our interests changed or they kind of got their own life going on and I got my own life going on. Not all of it bad, not all of it good. But I did move on and get an entire new friend base. And before I knew it, the new friend base started causing new issues that I wasn't exactly prepared for. I'd already got myself into the habit of constantly picking the female characters because nobody was picking them. Nobody was picking them. So that's what I did. And even when we played other games, like when we played Dynasty Warriors and we'd be leveling people up, everybody was like, I'll pick this dude, and I'll get this dude, and here's this giant dude with a giant friggin' mace thing, and here's a guy with a huge axe, and I guess, okay, I'll play the flute girl. Nobody else is going to level her up. I'll level her up. Cool. And you know what? It didn't make my gaming any less great. I still remember very fondly and have some major favorite characters in terms of designs for things that go beyond she's super pretty or she's hot. I actually do like the elegance of Chun-Li. I think that's part of her character and you can't lose that elegance. So like little things like that I have to appreciate because that kind of built a part of my personality. But then I get into a new group of friends and before I knew it, I fall into this group where like they're also picking a lot of the female characters. So I ran into a new kind of issue where when I very first, like when Rosalina and whatnot was first introduced to the Mario games, I just kind of gravitated over to her. She was a little taller, kind of neat, just had like a different worldly aspect to her. And I was like, okay, I like this girl. And then I started playing her, only to come across the issue where, like in Mario Party and whatnot, when I'm hanging out, I got friends. In fact, you know one of them from Fandom Night, Shane picks Rosalina. So before I knew it, that character was pretty much claimed every time. And like always, I just kind of skidded away from that character because I'm like, well, that's my guess. That person can play Rosalina. So then, for whatever reason, people don't pick Peach. I don't know why. But you know what? Somewhat faithful, Peach is fine. I don't mind playing as Peach. In fact, I've come to appreciate her in a different light that a lot of people, I think, don't. I think it's interesting to see that she's different as compared to a lot of the other characters and somehow seems to maintain this odd childlike innocence in an age where everybody has to be a warrior woman now. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I very much understand the idea, but I like some character tropes, and all people are different, right? Some people are warriors, some people are tough, some people are sensitive, some people are different in different ways, and that's the way that it is. And it's nice to see that this whole mentality of basically, she's got to be tough, so make her a bitch. I've talked about that before. That doesn't make your character independent or tough. It makes her a bitch. That's all it does. You want to make a strong character. I've seen that many times and I've enjoyed it many times. I grew up loving things like Xena the Warrior Princess, okay? That's a tough character, and she didn't have to be a heartless, angry, win-all bitch to do it. And I also don't like the idea that we also have things like, oh, man. The recent remake of Mulan, I think, ruined Mulan. I really, truly do, because all of a sudden Mulan begins the movie as essentially a warrior goddess. She's an unbeatable, badass martial artist who can't be beat and is practically perfect and wonderful at every single thing she tries to do. That was not Mulan. You don't need to add a sister character to Mulan so that she can screw up being a traditional woman. That was what it was. She was trying hard, but she was kind of clumsy, and she hadn't really found her way, and she hadn't found something that she identified with personally in terms of, this is natural to me, this is who I am, this is what I'm gonna be. That happened a lot in Mulan, over and over again, where she failed and then discovered her inner strength through failure and had to kind of move through these trials and become who she would become. Then they bring New Age Mulan, and New Age Mulan is just like this kung fu expert with super chi or whatever, and she can't mess up anything, and the only parts of her story are either characters all of a sudden being Gumbies, where they just kind of become super malleable to the moment, where her father is like, yes, never change who you are, you're wonderful, and one day the world is going to see that. To him immediately, randomly in one scene being like, I'm the man, you're the woman, know your place. What the shit just happened? What the shit just happened? That happens a lot in that Mulan movie. The new one, the live action one, where then all of a sudden they were like, hey, she's got to go be this traditional female thing. She's got to bring honor to the family and yada yada. She's got to pass this test. And then she goes there and her sister screws it up for her. When in the original, she screwed it up due to bad luck, misfortune, and just kind of being herself, her own goofy self. I think something got lost in the translation. But it's nice to see that with all the characters that have been changing so dramatically, Peach is still the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't demean her character at all. She can go from playing in Super Mario 3D World, where she's a playable character and she's a viable option and she has plenty of abilities that will get you through the game. She's a viable choice. To then going to Mario Deluxe, where of course she gets kidnapped because it's just Peach. She's not a super warrior woman. She's capable, she has skills and everything, but when somebody 5 times her size grabs a hold of her or whatever, or gets her in some sort of trap, she is susceptible to the trap every now and then. You know what? That doesn't bother me at all. At all. I'm fine with that. But yeah, over the years, I have used the female characters. And it all started back with calling dibs in fighting games and party games. It was always like that. We're gonna go play Norath, Champions of Norath, Return to Arms or whatever, and everybody's picking their characters, and then like they're like, okay, well, let's get this person or whatever, and then before I knew it, like, yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be the archer person. I'm gonna be this. Sure, I'll make it a girl. Whatever. It just seems to suit the idea better for me at this point. And then like now in MMOs and things like that, that's traditionally what I'll just do without even thinking about it. In Diablo, I wanted to use something that nobody else was using. In the original Diablo, everybody was picking the warrior, and if you weren't picking the warrior, you were picking the sorcerer guy. And I was playing with a group at the time. Consistently, I was playing with two main friends, and guess what? One was a sorcerer, and one was the warrior. And so I was like, that's fine. I'm into the rogue. I'll use bows and arrows and things like that, and be this cool Amazon blonde girl. That's fine, perfectly fine with it. And then before I knew it, I was moving on to Diablo 2, and it was like the same situation. There were more people playing, but they weren't picking the sorceress. So I'm like, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing then. This happened time and time again, over and over and over again, till before I knew it, these were just the characters I was picking. And that kind of puts me where I am today. And I made a joke about it in the most recent, in one of the more recent episodes for Fandom Night. We were doing a could you survive a situation, and we started passing out the powers for the Power Rangers, and I was like, I'll do pink. That's fine. 100% okay with that. I'll do pink. I'll have the bow and arrow, and I'll have the cool pterodactyl helmet, and I'll fly a jet. That's fine. I can be last in command, whatever. It doesn't bother me at all. In fact, when we played the Power Rangers game not way too long ago, like there's a board game that we actually got, and yeah, I picked her. I just did. And turns out that was a good idea too, because her ability is what led us to beating the game the first time we ever beat it. Yeah, I picked the female characters. I play as Peach. And you know what? I don't hate that at all. I know what started it. I know the reason I picked the female characters. But I don't hate the fact that it's become a hobby, like a habit now, because it kind of opened my eyes to seeing different ideas in characters. And then I analyzed the different male characters at a different level than I think a lot of other people do. It may very well, me looking from the outside and playing a lot of girl characters, it may have been what made me very analytical. Can't say so for sure, but it might have led to that. Because I was seeing things from a third-party perspective all the time with other characters that I would have picked, until after given a little amount of time, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually really happy that I'm using Taki. She is my favorite character. Easily. In fact, in part 4, when they removed Taki and they gave me the new ninja, I did not like that. That was not for me. Taki was my character. From Soul Calibur 1, 2, and 3, it was Taki all day, all night, all the time. Yeah, just something to think about. I play as Princess Peach, and I'm not ashamed to do so. But that's why I started playing as Princess Peach. Later on.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.